Hello and welcome to this Bioprocess International webcast. I'm your host, Leah Roslin, the online editor for Bioprocess International. Before we get started, just a couple of notes. This webcast is being recorded and will be made available for replay in the multimedia section of our website. We have muted the audio lines, but we welcome you to type in your questions for our speakers in the chat window on your screen. After the presentation, we will begin the question and answer portion, and I will ask our speakers your questions from the chat window. Your questions in the chat window will only be visible to myself and our speakers. Thank you again for joining us today. It is now my pleasure to introduce our speakers, Daniela Guttmann and Susanne Hall.
Thanks, Leah, for your introduction. I would like to start this webinar with a very simple definition of product lifecycle management, which is a systematic approach to managing the series of changes a product goes through from its design and development to its ultimate retirement or disposal. Taking a closer look into this definition, especially to the words changes and development, we can come to a conclusion that a product is never finished. There is always something to improve on, to change its functionality or make it easier to use. And I think there's no better way to exemplify that by using an example of a product we all know, which is beer. Here we have the example of Budweiser. Look how Budweiser changed its packaging from 1924 to 2013. It made much more ergonomic and easier for consumers to open and hold the can. And the product is still a success in the market. In the pharmaceutical industry, product lifecycle management activities also play a very important role. Here, we can basically describe 4 factors that push us for that. The first one is the patient demand for user-friendly systems. The aging population is growing, meaning they need more, better, and efficient healthcare solutions. We are seeing injectable biologics as a growing segment to support the treatment of chronic disease. For sure, we shall think about the needs of patients with certain diseases, such as arthritis, and questions like, are they still able to open the blister pack when they are in pain? Can they make self-injection efficiently, or do they need special devices? The second factor are increasing product safety requirements. Particularly important here are products under defined class requirements such as hepatitis. For the healthcare workers, the introduction of devices that protect from needle sticks are especially important. Also related to product safety are tamper evidence seals, allowing the product integrity and protection against counterfeiting as well. Another aspect that moves the industry are the changing in regulatory requirements, such as the new serialization mandates, which is also a topic in this webinar, as it is bringing a lot of action to the industry at the moment, and can also be considered as a product lifecycle management activity in some cases. Furthermore, in terms of changes in regulatory requirements, we also have the recent revised FDA combination product definition. Because of time constraints, we will not come deeper into this topic during this webinar. And last but not least, the industry is being faced by continuously economic pressures. But at the same time, innovations are mandatory. So we need to find solutions that benefit patients, but also in a cost-effective way. My colleague Susanne Hall will be able to introduce you to some examples during her presentation. As I presented in the last slide, serialization is a new regulatory requirement in many markets. Concerning the importance of the topic, we want to take the opportunity to talk a few minutes about that. What we see as one of the complexities in here are the lack of global standards. There are different timelines, different requirements, different ways of coding and report to the agencies. For instance, China, Turkey, and Brazil requires aggregation of units. On the other hand, the United States and EU require serialization only. And in my point of view, what makes serialization different from a common product lifecycle management project is that there is no much change in the patient look and feel, Basically, you're applying a 2D data matrix code along with sterilization number and variable data to a cartoon. On the other hand, there are a lot of benefits for patients and the logistics in general, as you are able to get more transparency in the supply chain, get a better inventory control, facilitate a possible recall, and of course, authenticate a product, meaning that the patient is receiving a branded, not a counterfeiting drug. With the introduction of sterilization at your company, we're not only changing the packaging itself, but some processes as well. Some of the questions you should bear in mind are, for example, how do I enable readability of codes on small packaging? For logistics purposes, some companies prefer to implement the smallest pack possible. On the other hand, the 2D data matrix code should still be readable. Susanne Hall will have the opportunity to give you a deeper insight about it on her talk. The second question is, how can I meet different code place needs? As this is especially important if you decide to aggregate the units. Your packaging development team needs to work closely with engineering to ensure the code is placed in a way which can still be readable and aggregated by your machines. Also, we all know that sterilization is about creating and exchanging large amounts of data between different parties. There is no standard answer on how this data can be 100% safe, but for sure each company should think about the best solution to protect sterilization data. And of course, we should think a step further on emerging sterilization technologies that may come and how my company will adapt to those ones. For example, radio frequency technologies and different types of tamper evidence seals. Now that we've introduced product lifecycle management and sterilization in general, it is time for our first pull question. I would like to understand from you, is your company already thinking about implementing sterilization or track and trace solutions on the unit level? For example, sterilization of primary packaging containers such as syringes or vials? Yes or no? You have a few seconds to answer the question. The results will be shared in the end of the webinar. Let's follow now with our second poll question. In your opinion, what is the main driver and benefit of sterilization track and trace solutions on the unit level? Please note that you are able to mark more than one option in here if that applies. Gathering patient compliance information, being able to comply with future regulatory requirements, reaching the next step of supply chain control and optimization, optimized protection against counterfeiting, or I've never considered it. You have a few seconds to answer the question, and the results will be shared in the end of the webinar. Thank you for answering the full questions. Now, let's take a closer look into some process changes when implementing serialization in your company. The first and one of the biggest process change is into your IT system. By the end of the day, you need to create a system that meets regulatory and customer requirements and that is able to integrate into your current IT infrastructure. Invest time in implementing a good IT infrastructure. For instance, how will you communicate serial numbers to your customers? What reporting possibilities do you have? How do you handle serial numbers? Can you create them within your IT solution, or you receive them from external parties? And last but not least, how and where do you save serialization data, and what other possibilities you have for ID attributes? The second process change is related directly to your packaging lines. The answer of what is the best option depends on factors such as your company strategy, the markets you serve, and the volume you pack. But generally speaking, the mobile solution is more suitable for small batch sizes and manual packaging, and the direct implementation of serialization on the line is suitable for larger batch sizes with a high degree of automation. But now, to talk a little bit more about examples of product lifecycle management projects in secondary packaging, and also to give us insights about serialization on the product level, I would like to pass the ball to my colleague Susanne Hall. Susanne, it's your turn.
Thank you, Daniela. You give us a good overview about the serialization in general. Now I would like to go in further details and see how that looks like on the product and what are the key questions. Looking at the different packaging designs, we have different challenges. We need space for the printing of the variable data and the 2D matrix code. This area has to be varnish-free for some printing processes, like for an inkjet printer. After printing, a camera controls directly the information regarding correctness. Is the printing legible, not blurred, and so on? If there is not enough space for the human-readable data and the 2D matrix code on one side, you have to think about having this in two areas, maybe on the top and on the bottom of the carton. This means you need two printing and two camera systems. Please be aware all packaging material and the printing have tolerances, and this could be an impact on the space which is available for your print. Or if you have to deliver the product to China, you additionally have to implement the China code. The best way is to place the 2D matrix code close to the variable data on the side flap. Human readable information is probably already there, so you just have to add the 2D matrix code. If you need the aggregation, then you have to check how the folding carton is arranged in the shipping carton. The best way to do the aggregation is to have the camera on top of all numbers and on the folding carton already placed into the shipping carton. Depending on your equipment, you are able to aggregate in one layer or in additional layers on top of that. Some countries, like in Europe, the serialization goes always together with the temper and evident of the folding box. There are several options to that. The different possibilities I will explain later. As Daniela already told, serialization is one topic regarding lifecycle management. A very important improvement for the patient is the redesign for a better convenience. For example, having a single vial together with all components you need for the mixing and injection is much better and faster to use. Or having the lyophilizated product together with a diluent in one double chamber cartridge for an easy and sterile handling, without any filling from one container to the other. By just moving the plunger to the reconstitution and apply the product. And probably the easiest way for an injecting is a pre-assembled cartridge in a pen. As important as patient convenient are the safety aspects of the product. There are several options to meet the requirements of safety. First of all, the packaging should be prevented from counterfeiting. Enclose the package by a tamper-evident label or gluing the box and open the perforation. The box is open and you can't close it again. If you don't want to glue the box, there are several options from the suppliers of the folding carton on the market, without any gluing, just with small adaptations on the line. To protect the patient or the healthcare profession from injury, the syringes are assembled into safety devices. For an indication of different concentrations, you can perform this with different colors of plunger rods, labels, or safety device, or something else. Besides of safety regulations, there are also special hygienic requirements to reduce particles. In this case, the pen was packed into a top-loading box together with a needle. The Japanese market requires a reduced particle process. This was met because of a closed blister produced on the laminar floor before you go into the area where the particles are generated by the cartoning machine. The design of the package should stay like the one of the rest of the world. All these redesigns are very important, but always we have to look for the cost to meet the management requirements as well. If you know from the beginning which application you have in the future, you could save money during planning of the tooling. In our case, we had during the project timeline 2 tools for different applications of the same product. Instead of having 2 tools, either for the application for adults or the application for children with only the half of the filling volume, our goal was to having just 1 tool. We had to look for the different stopper position. This had an influence on the overall length, including the plunger rod and the place you need inside the blister for the assembled syringe. Knowing at the beginning of the project that we have 2 applications, we could work just with 1 tool and save money in tools, qualification, maintenance, or logistics. Nowadays, after implementing the tool, we don't have to change them during production, and we have the benefits from having just 1 tool. And now, here is a different example for cost saving, together with 1 customer with a very complex kit packaging. All packaging material, blisters, trays, and inserts had different dimensions. Therefore, spacers had been necessary to fix the material in the box. Feedback of the customer got from the market was that the kit was too complex to unpack. So our task was to develop a user-friendly kit. Moreover, due to the complexity to the old kit, the production, it took too much time to arrange the elements in the correct way. To bring our task into life, which was minimize complexity, we redesigned the complete packaging design. Developed a new tray to have all material in the same size. And because of the new dimensions, we had to change all the artwork. This saves cost in material in time of pack the kits, in logistics because of smaller kits, and of course this kit was much easier to handle for the user. Now that we presented some examples about product lifecycle management, it is time for the next question. I would like to understand from you, in order to maintain or increase market share, what is the main reason for product lifecycle activity in secondary packaging at your company? Please mark the option that better fits into your company strategies. An option is rebranding of my products to gain competitive advantage and introduce premium pricing, or gain cost efficiency and be in a position to compete with market entrants. Time to answer the question. The result will be shared in the end of the webinar. Okay, thank you. To implement a new packaging process or a new packaging design, it is always a long way to go. You have to create a lot of documentation. So we usually start with the specification of the packaging material, for example, drawings, material specification, and the artwork of a customer. Then we look if the format parts are already available on our lines, or the packaging material fits on our lines, or if we have to adapt anything on existing machines, or even build a new line. The document of material and the process together with the test of a new project is done during the development phase and ends with the validation phase. This includes a risk analysis and a final process qualification made with the first commercial batches. So far, I gave you some example about our project work. To give you a whole overview about the packaging options at Vetter, please see here what we are doing in our secondary packaging development and production. We pack vials and syringes with different closure systems or cartridges just into blisters, or depending on your needs, into safety devices, auto-injectors or pens. Of course, we do the serialization and the aggregation after the packaging for you.
Now, for the ones that doesn't know about Vetter in detail, I would like to provide you some quick facts about the company. We are a privately owned CDMO with more than 35 years of experience in aseptic filling. We have no products owned. That means no conflict of interest with our customers. We are headquartered in Ravensburg, south of Germany. We had a sales of 421 million euro in 2014. We have about 3,400 employees. We are experts for high-quality produced and thermally sterilized drug delivery systems. We support world's top 10 pharma biotech companies. We have resources from preclinical development through to global market supply. We have experience with global regulatory authorities, approximately 50 custom products, drug products and diluents included, with FDA approval. And we are lyophilization specialists. If you want to learn more about Vetter, its product and services, please visit our website at www.vetter-pharma.com. Thank you for your time and attention. And I think now it's time to share with you the results of our poll questions. And our first question, which was, is your company already thinking about implementing sterilization or track and trace solutions on the unit level? For example, sterilization of primary packaging containers such as syringes or vials. About 57% of the audience answered yes, and 42% answered no. So I can say for this answer it's pretty balanced. So for the second question, which was, in your opinion, what is the main driver and benefit of sterilization track and trace solutions on the unit level? So you have the opportunity to mark more than one option. So here we see there are three responses that dominate here, which are compliance with future regulations, so being able to comply with future regulatory requirements. So most of the audience thinks that will be a regulatory requirement in the future in a lot of markets. Also, the second reason will be the next step of supply chain control. And also the third reason, which is also pretty balanced in here, is the protection against counterfeiting. All right, I think we had third true question, which was, in order to maintain or increase market share, what is the main reason for product lifecycle activity in secondary packaging at your company? So most of the audience says that it is to rebranding of my product to gain competitive advantage and introduce premium pricing. So that was it from the poll questions. Now it's time we still have some time.
Yes.
And it's time to answer, I think, questions from the audience. Leah, I don't know if you have any questions for us.
Yes. So what is one of the biggest challenges during the launch preparation for a product in secondary packaging?
Susanne, is this a question for you?
That's a question for me. That's a very interesting question. You know, departments have different systems and documents, and our customers as well, like SAP systems or the system for the printing machines, the camera controls at the production lines. All the systems should lead to the same result in the end. So we need a good system to have them together, and that's why it's a good controlled process. It's very important to be documented such in the PDS and all these documents.
Do we have time for, or do we have more questions, or do we have time to answer one question more, Leah?
Yes, we have another question. So how do you meet the demand for particle reduction in secondary packaging, which is especially important to meet stringent regulatory requirements for Japan and other applications such as ophthalmics?
So I think I'll pass the ball for you as well, Susanne, on this one.
Thank you, Daniela. For particle reduction, FedUp provides specialized services such as laminar floor, different packaging materials, including the blister packs, separate production areas, like I told, with a laminar floor, special gowning procedures, different cleaning procedures. This is especially very complex for the hygienic requirements for Japan. And for ophthalmics, we use the same process while ensuring that the packaging material is suitable for serialization, like for Tyvek foil or something like that.
Okay, do we have any other questions? If you have one, please type it into the chat window. If not, I will be sending an email following the meeting with a link to our recorded version of this webcast, and you'll be able to have follow-up contact information for our speakers. Well, thank you very much, Daniela and Susanne, and thank you for joining us today, audience. Goodbye.
Bye. Bye.